Well, hello, gang. It has been a broadcast from hell. And this is Watercolor Sketch, take 2. Sheesh. I will obliterate take 1 as soon as I get to my computer somewhere. And it will be removed from all time. All right. Whew. Golly, that was stressful. So once again, this is a sketch that I'm doing for what will be a large oil painting, kind of a fantasy scene, a glorious landscape, if you will, with this architecture in it, and it will have people, figures in it. That's what really makes the difference between just an amazing landscape and I can't decide what to do with the architecture down here. Oh, bless your hearts. Thank you guys for hanging in there. Big is at least 48 by 60, probably a little bit bigger than that. And that would get us into unconventional sizes, like 7 feet wide and 4.5 feet tall or something like that. I'm sort of comparing it in my mind to Albert Bierstadt painting that I saw a couple months ago up in Washington, D.C. Probably his most famous painting, High in the Sierra, California Sierras painting. That's Albert Bierstadt. All right, I really have to decide what I'm doing with the. I've done 2 sketches before now, and I wasn't settled on the architecture when I did those. I'm sorry, there's one, and there's another one. That's part of the reason why we do rough sketches, isn't it? To hammer out things like this. And I'm drawing, as many of you know, with watercolor pencils, so that when I put water on this, the pencils will liven up. And so far I've used 3 different colors in this. I don't know if I can erase this or not. Oh yeah, how about that? I can. How about that? That's good, because I didn't like what I just did. All right. So, and if you missed the beginning of my take 1, I said this is kind of a heavenly vision, if you will. And if you think that's cool, we'll just leave it at that. If you think that's terrible, then we just won't push it. We'll just let you feel whatever you want to feel. But it's a pretty literally a vision that I have had repeatedly. No, I think I'm trying to fit. Let me press it a little bit further. I'm thinking of a stone arch bridge. Oh, and I want one of the elements in the sketch is this rowboat. Hello, Uncle. Man, it's been a rough afternoon. Yeah, I uninstalled Mevo, reinstalled it, restarted my phone, did everything, just the way you do, did everything. Anyway, so we'll find out. If it disconnects again, I will give up immediately and just assume I'm not supposed to do a broadcast today. So I want a shoreline down here. Yeah, and that doesn't leave room for this arched bridge thing. So, like I said, I feel like I'm trying to squeeze in too much down here. How about this? How about if I had stairs with all this is in marble, and then underneath the stairs there's a conduit where I want water coming out from underneath this pavilion. And again, you say, why? I don't know. I'm just making it up, or I'm trying to faithfully replicate what I felt was in this place when I was having an experience. And again, I don't want to. I don't want to shock anybody. What? You have experiences? Are you a nut? Well, yeah, sure. Just Dan Nelson is a nut. There. Now that's done with. We don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm actually writing a book based on. Now I'm going to really freak you out. Sorry. I'm actually writing a book, 31 chapters down, done, of a book of these visions, if you will. And again, I don't want to trigger anybody. I really don't. But so if that's too much information for you, then just pretend I didn't say it, okay? Some of you are going, cool. I want to hear more. Okay, another time. That might be working now. Can you see what's going on here? I've got stairs coming down. There'll be, and then a landing, a platform. The problem is there's no, at the moment, I don't have a railing around the platform. Then stairs come down with more railings, and underneath the stairs is where the water comes out from the. Oh, I think I need to move the rowboat further away because I need more. I want shoreline. I definitely want sand down here. And this is a lake. It's not the ocean, so there's no big tides or current or waves or anything like that. Just a lake, a mountain lake. Now, next question is, I could put bushes around this. Are people in danger of falling off this landing? If I build another balustrade. No, that's not the word. Balustrade with a B. There we go. Balustrade. If I create a balustrade all the way around it. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to have to do. So the people, other than maybe one here, are going to be sort of cut off at the thighs because the balustrade will be in the way. But something like that. Not a whole bunch of people, but just a few. And a rowboat, and over here is a small island. And I made it too big for my last sketch. And there's a tiny little, again, white marble pavilion on that island, kind of hidden in the trees. Little private retreat kind of thing. Then there's waterfall coming into this lake. Trees, hills, lakes, waterfalls, and then big, glorious snow-covered mountains. And then, of course, a cloud, dramatic cloud up behind the mountain. Whew. So I've used 4 different colors, but hang on, I'm thinking about throwing in just one more for some of the details. Here we have, what do they call this? Red, pinkish red. Oh, and let me grab a little ruler here. Start getting some of these lines actually straight here. Everything I'm doing, of course, is up in the air. I mean, it remains to be seen whether I will actually do the large oil painting. I mean, I'm planning on it, but, you know, sometimes things happen. And after doing the watercolor sketch, I might say, nah, I've run out of gas. I don't feel like doing it. And these balustrades here, all these railings, if you will, white marble railings, are going to be, again, are going to be classical. They're not going to be straight. They're going to be whatever, what shape do you call this? It's a very distinctive, very typical. Let me see if I can draw one just to. It's going to be something like that, right? Can you see that? Yeah, every one of those, maybe thinner. Let me draw that again. Let's practice that a little bit. See if that's what and I think there needs to be there we go. And then out at an angle, straight across. Let's make it thinner. Not quite so bulky. There we go. That's better. Yeah, I like that better. And add another step down there at the bottom. That's not quite symmetrical, but you got the idea. So I think every one of those pickets, I don't know what you call it. In a regular fence, it's a picket. But when it's made out of marble, picket doesn't quite sound like the right word. I'm anxious to get going on the watercolor so you guys can see the next step of the process. So let me do just a little bit more. Oh, once again, I was talking about this earlier. A trick that I have developed when doing watercolor sketches, little columnar juniper here, yeah. When doing watercolor sketches, I have the freedom, give myself the freedom to use various loose mediums like whiteout, opaque like gouache, like watercolor pencils, pen and ink, and so on and so forth. Because I don't call it a watercolor painting per se, I just call it watercolor sketch. One of the tricks that I developed then is using these watercolor pencils, do my first sketch, which I did here. I did it in a very light golden warm yellow. Then I did the second sketch in a light pink fuchsia. I did the third one in purple, and now I'm doing the fourth sketch in a darker red. So with each subsequent color, because it's darker, it has the effect of making the earlier sketches done in a lighter color, makes them disappear. But the fun part is, when I hit this paper with water, all of those colors, the purple, the yellow, the purple, the red, and the fuchsia, will all hop to life, so to speak, come to life. So it's not a realism that I'm after by using these. It's in fact an abstract element that I'm pursuing. And here in just a minute, I'll leave the pencil, and I'm either going to go to pen and ink, real cheap, felt tip markers. This is not the kind of illustration that needs to be a real pen and ink pen. Just those little felt tip pens will do just fine, because it's just a down and dirty sketch. Now I do hope that this sketch will be nice enough that somebody somewhere sometime will say, "Oh, I'd like to buy that. Is that for sale?" Right? So I'm not treating it with contempt, but it is just a sketch after all. And there, in this case, many reasons for doing a sketch. There's always several. As you regulars know, I don't normally do sketches for my oil paintings, but I do think most people should, including me. But when I'm doing a live painting at a wedding, I don't have that luxury. I just have to go and hope for the best. But besides working out the architectural details, which I've done quite a bit of here, there's also working out lighting, all kinds of compositional issues. So in this case, turns out I am going to do, in fact, a number of sketches. Catch myself holding the pencil in the death control grip. I get irritated by that pretty quickly. Okay, waterfall, little lake, another waterfall, another lake, another lake, another waterfall. That was part of the beauty of this scene, was the cascading series of waterfalls from the mountain, high snow-capped mountain. And by the way, I did take a few minutes before I started this to do a Google search for waterfalls and just printed these out just to help give me ideas. And the same thing for mountains. So I'm not going to copy any of these slavishly. I'll just glance at them and say, ooh, I'll see something and say, oh, that's a good idea right there. Otherwise, this whole scene, of course, is going to be out of my head. I have been in the habit for many years, when I do a drawing, unless I'm going to do the drawing all the way to the edge of the page, which is not normal, I will literally draw, and usually just freehand or something. I'll draw a border on the page. There's a number of reasons for that, and I don't have the energy to tell you what they are right now. I've talked about it several times over the years, but it's a good plan. It's a good habit, and I'll explain it some other time. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. That's probably about right. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I don't always do this the same way, by the way. I have quite a bit of freedom. There are basically 4 techniques that I use: watercolor pencil, watercolor, pen and ink, and gouache, or even, depending on how rough the sketch is, instead of gouache, I'll just use a office supply whiteout pen. All right, so here we go. I'm going to spray. Let me get this out of the way so I don't damage it too much. I'm going to spray this whole page. Look at that, would you? Woo! Is that fun? Is that fun? And here's my small, if you will, one of my travel watercolor kits. Now, it would be very normal and very good for someone to say, man, why'd you do that? That would be a good question. But I just about lost half of those details that I spent so long. Just about is the key word there. Just about lost. Not quite totally. And I'm going to lift up my drawing table so now it's level, the water won't flow in any particular direction. And I think I'm ready to go ahead and hit that with a hair dryer. Sorry about the big bad noise. Close your ears. Here we go. Oh, not plugged in. Good grief. in theory, this hairdryer stays plugged in all the time. It's never unplugged. Evidently, the theory doesn't quite match the reality. Be with you in just a minute. Oh my goodness, this has been the buggiest broadcast just about I've ever done. I am flat laying down on the floor down here. This is so gall-darn embarrassing. My goodness. All right. And while I was down there, my camera collapsed. Whew. Oh my goodness. Y'all, I'm sorry. Nobody should be watching this video. Oh, no, no. Oh, I know what's wrong. Sorry about the noise. Dry the back of the paper to take the curl out. Horrible. Okay, now next step is one of two things, or three, and I don't know which one it's going to be yet. Yeah, now I do. I'm going to do the options were more watercolor pencil, pen and ink, or watercolor washes. And I just, that minute, opted for the third of those options, which is watercolor washes. So again, here's my small-ish watercolor kit. I have smaller than that, and I have bigger than that. And I'm going to use a wonderful 3-inch brush. Is that what that is? Yep, 3-inch brush. I really wanted that a little more phthalo blue than that, but that'll do. I'm not going to waste time. Now, some of you will know that this is not a perfectly traditional way to do watercolors, because I have just, with that huge brush, I've just flat covered up my whole painting, which means there's no white. And normally in watercolor, you would not want to lose all your whites in one fell swoop. But because this is not a traditional watercolor painting, I'm leaving myself the option of using opaque white later in the process. So that's why I'm not as worried about it. And I just thought it would be cool to shift the feel of the painting away from pink, 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 which I had a minute ago, to a more realistic color palette, which is blue and blue-green. Now, having said that, of course, we can always lift out wet paint, which I'm going to go up here because I know roughly where these big mountains are going to be, and the big cloud between the big mountains. You have to be careful when you're pushing on watercolor paper, because you can, when it's wet, because you can damage it. You also have to be very careful about rubbing it, because you can ruin the surface texture of the watercolor paper. So I'm being very gentle about both of those right now. All right, forgive me, I have to take just a minute again to dry this. Won't take as long this time, but I'm having fun. That's that's the important thing, isn't it? All right, I'm always relieved when that racket is done. Now, once again, I have a couple different options. One is to do more watercolor, pen and ink, or watercolor pencil. And while I was drying it there, by the way, Uncle, I saw your chat. Yes, I love, I don't know what your homemade ground is made out of, but yeah, gessoing a surface in preparation for watercolor, I like that. I like that approach very much, and it often adds a texture to the watercolor painting that I find attractive, interesting, fun. So, yeah, kudos to you. So here's what I've decided while I was drawing that. Now, let me hold this up. I just want you to, maybe I can zoom in, which is better. Here we go. I want you to see what, as much as I can, what I'm seeing. I don't know about you, but love all this subtle texture. Once again, those of you who follow me on a regular basis know that my definition, if you will, of good art is art that the viewer is involved in the interpretive process. That is, even though the oil painting I'm going to do is going to belie my typical philosophy because it's going to be quite realistic. So the viewers will have very little work to do to interpret the scene. Does that make sense? In realism, the viewer is much more passive. That's why I don't normally do realism, because I contend that the viewer experiences a bigger buzz of aesthetic pleasure if their mind is involved, required in fact, to interpret the squiggles, so to speak, the brushstrokes that are on the canvas, or in this case on the page. So I love the abstraction that is being reflected in this on this paper the way it is right now. I'm not, again, just in case there's any perhaps early journey painters that are watching, I'm not struggling to achieve realism. I'm holding my pencil in the death control grip. Do you see that? This is a time for that, by the way. There's a time for everything. This is a time for that. But I'm not grunting and straining and groaning, trying to achieve a realistic, much less photorealistic effect. What I'm interested in, especially right now, is interesting line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design. By design means balance, layout, and so forth. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Those are the elements of design. That's why the word design in that list is slightly problematic, because I'm using the word design in two different ways. The elements of design are line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. What will make a painting that's done today appreciated and valued and enjoyed by human beings 1,000 years from now? It's not primarily what it is a picture of. It's primarily line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Well, I've talked about this, yea, verily, till I'm blue in the face over the years. So I'm just going to let it go at that for right now. We don't need to get blue in the facey today. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Those are the elements of design. Now, the principles of design, there is no hard and fast rule or list for what makes up the principles of design. There's much less agreement, but it's things like tension, rhythm, resolution, form, flow, stuff like that. The way I've described it sometimes in the past is that the elements of design are, by the way, let me zoom in here real quick so you can maybe see what I'm doing here. I'm redrawing now in blue, and I love the interplay between the blue and the pink that's going on here. But I'm not tracing exactly the pink drawing, the last drawing I did. Like, I now feel like the railing on this staircase, if I can call it that, needs to be higher. So I'm making changes as I go, refinements, improvements, corrections even. One of the benefits of drawing using this technique of progressively darker colors, thereby the earlier, lighter colors, in essence, disappear, is that you can make corrections at every stage of the process. And I will make corrections again if I go over this in ink. Now, I don't always use ink on a watercolor sketch. Sometimes yes, sometimes, most of the time yes, but not always. But if I do use ink, I will be editing the drawing yet again. Okay, and I am not going to, there's enough of this detail survived the washes that I'm not going to draw at all in blue. That would be quite redundant, not to mention boring. And a little linguistic humor there, but very little, not so everybody would notice. But I do need to come back here in the further away in the background and redraw. I don't need to, I just want to redraw some of this stuff they got largely obliterated, although you probably can't see it, but I can actually still see most of my pink, pale pink lines, and the yellow ones, as a matter of fact. That's interesting. So each color of pencil, reacts slightly differently when the water hits it. Largely obliterated, although you probably can't see it, but I can actually still see most of my pink, pale pink lines, and the yellow ones, as a matter of fact. That's interesting. So each color of pencil, reacts slightly